Picture a building that hasn't slept in 40 years. Now fill it with the smell of horse sweat, boiled mutton, tallow candles burning down to nothing, and 200 years of spilled ale soaked so deep into the floorboards that no amount of scrubbing has ever got it out. Add a kitchen that runs from 3 in the morning until midnight. Add a yard that floods when it rains and bakes into cracked mud when it doesn't. Add a fireplace in the common room that smokes when the wind comes from the east, which in England is roughly 200 days a year. Add strangers, dozens of them every single day. Men who've been in a coach for 9 hours, men who are drunk before noon, men who haven't bathed since August and it's currently March. Men with secrets, men with money, men with neither. And underneath all of it, underneath the noise and the smell and the endless motion, had you, 17 years old. 4 months in from a farm in Worcestershire you'll probably never see again, sleeping in a hayloft above 12 horses, working from before sunrise to after dark every day, for wages so small they barely exist. That's the coaching inn. The great English coaching inn of the 1740s. They were everywhere in this era. Every town of any size had at least one. The major roads were dotted with them every 10 or 15 miles, which was roughly how far a team of horses could pull a loaded coach before they needed to rest and be changed. The coaching inn wasn't just a place to sleep, it was infrastructure. It was the internet of the 18th century, the node through which information, goods, people and money flowed. Shut down the coaching inns and you've effectively paralysed the country. But nobody was shutting them down. They were doing extraordinary business, because England in 1749 was a country on the move. More coaches on the roads than ever before. More roads, better roads. The journey from London to Edinburgh that once took 2 weeks was now taking 6 days on a good run. 6 days of bone-rattling discomfort, mind you. 6 days of frozen feet and jolting wheels and the smell of whoever else was crammed into the coach with you. But 6 days nonetheless. Progress. All of that traffic had to eat somewhere, sleep somewhere, change horses somewhere. It stopped here. Welcome to the Bell, Northampton, in the year of our Lord 1749. So I make these history stories and I genuinely cannot tell whether the people listening are asleep within 30 seconds or whether you're all secret enthusiasts who lie in bed at midnight thinking, yes, but what exactly did a coaching inn smell like? Either way, I'm glad you're here. Get comfortable. Close your eyes if you want. And let's go back. Your eyes open to darkness, not gentle darkness, not the soft dark of a bedroom with curtains drawn and a city humming somewhere outside. This is the raw black of 4 in the morning in a loft above a stable, where the only light is a thin crack between the boards where the planking has warped, and the only warmth is the collective body heat of 12 horses standing below you. For a moment, just a moment, you don't know where you are. Then it hits you. The smell. Horses first. The deep, sweet animal smell of them, coming up through the boards like heat. Horses and their dung and their hay and the particular smell of their sweat, which is different from human sweat. More honest somehow. More animal. Underneath that, straw. The old straw of the loft floor you're lying on, compacted by weeks of use, smelling of dust and must and faintly of something that might be mouths. Then smoke, cold smoke and wood smoke, drifting from the inn's chimneys 100 feet away, carried on the March air through every gap and crack. It sits at the back of your throat like a memory. Then something else. Something you've come to associate with this place and nowhere else. the smell of the road itself, of 100 travellers arriving and departing, of coach leather and wheel grease and horse-soaked road dust. A smell you couldn't have named before you came here and now cannot imagine not smelling. And underneath all of it, your own particular contribution to the atmosphere of the Bell Inn hayloft. 4 months of sleeping in the same rough shirt because you own one shirt, and one shirt is what you wash on Sunday and wear wet on Monday. Your unwashed hair, your feet that haven't been properly dry since January. Welcome to the Bell Inn, Northampton, in the winter, becoming spring of 1749. You're lying on a straw mattress barely thicker than your outstretched hand. It's a step up from the floor, which is what the 3 stable boys sleep on, but it's not much of a step. Your blanket is a cast-off from one of the guest rooms, grey wool, thin, smelling faintly of whoever last used it in a proper bed. Your name is Thomas Baxter. You're 17 years old. You arrived here from a village called Powick, just south of Worcester, with a letter from your father's employer to the innkeeper here, and the clothes you were wearing, and exactly 3 halfpenny in your pocket. The letter said you were a good worker and an honest boy, and willing to learn. The innkeeper, Mr. Edmund Hartley, read it twice, folded it up, and said he could use another pair of hands in the stables. The pay was 1 shilling and 6pence a week, plus food and a place to sleep. Back home, everyone said the road would sort you out. That a boy who got himself a position at proper posting in on the Great North Road had made a start. That there was money moving through places like that, and where money moved, opportunity could follow. They weren't wrong exactly, but they left out the part where opportunity arrives in the shape of a coach that needs its horses changed at 5 in the morning, and you're the one who has to do it. The church bell of All Saints, the big church, right in the heart of Northampton, barely half a mile away, begins to toll. 4 strokes, 4 in the morning. You have exactly 1 hour. The hayloft is maybe 30 feet long and 15 feet wide, running above the length of the stable block. On one side, bales of hay stacked nearly to the roof. On the other, the sleeping area. 6 of you up here. You, Will Patchett, who is 18 and has been here 6 months longer than you and never lets you forget it. The 3 stable boys, who range from about 12 to maybe 15, and old Silas, who is the night groom and sleeps during the day and is therefore only here in the mornings, which makes him the most confusing element of the sleeping arrangement. Silas is already gone. You can see the depression in the straw where he slept, already cooling. Will is on his back with his mouth open. He's got the second best spot in the loft, close enough to the hayloft edge that you can hear the horses below, which Will claims is comforting, and far enough from the exterior wall that you don't get the cold coming through the gaps. You've got the 3rd best spot, which is essentially Will's spot minus the warmth and with more draught. The stable boys are a tangled mass of limbs at the far end. They sleep in a pile like puppies, which you initially found bizarre, and now understand is just efficient heat management. A sleeping pile of 3 small boys generates more warmth than 3 separate sleeping boys. Basic physics. You sit up. The straw makes a noise like a sigh as your weight shifts. The cold hits your face immediately. The loft is warmer than the outside. Those 12 horses below are putting out an enormous amount of heat, but it's still cold enough that your breath shows. Your boots are beside you. You pull them on with stiff, reluctant fingers. The leather is dry but cold, and the left boot has developed a hole in the sole that you've been managing by stuffing it with a rag, which works until the rag gets wet. which it is now because last night you walked through a puddle in the yard, wet foot in a cold boot. This is how your day begins. You pull on your second shirt over your sleeping shirt. Yes, you own 2 shirts now. You bought the second one in January from the market for 5p, which was a third of a week's wages, and it was absolutely worth it. The second shirt is thicker than the first and has a small tear at the collar that you've stitched up badly, but it holds. Your coat. Your coat is the best thing you own. It's a heavy wool coat, dark brown, that you found hanging on a peg in the stable yard 3 weeks after you arrived. Nobody claimed it. You waited a month before you took it. It fits across the shoulders and is too long in the body and smells perpetually of horse. But it is warm. It is genuinely warm, which in March in Northamptonshire is the only thing that matters. You climb down the ladder from the loft. The rungs are worn smooth by years of the same journey, morning after morning. Your feet find them by feel in the dark. The stable below is already half awake. Horses shifting in their stalls, sensing the change in the air that comes before morning. One of the coach horses, the big roan gelding that came in yesterday on the Manchester run, turns his head and looks at you. His eye catches the faint light from somewhere, gleaming amber and as enormous and completely unimpressed with your existence. You scratch his nose as you pass. He snorts. It's the warmest greeting you'll receive today. The yard. The Bell-Inn's yard is a rectangle, maybe 60 feet by 40, bounded on all 4 sides by buildings. The inn itself on the north side, all 3 stories of it, windows dark. The stable block on the south, which is where you've come from. Coach houses on the east, big double doors, 3 carriages currently sleeping inside. The farrier's workshop and the brew house on the west, both dark and quiet, but the brew house still breathing out warmth through its walls from yesterday's work. In the centre of the yard, the pump. In the far corner, the midden heap, which at this hour smells like everything you've ever wanted to avoid smelling. You take a breath of morning air, cold and damp and carrying the faint smell of the town waking up around you. Coal smoke. Somewhere, bread baking. The distant sound of a cart on cobblestones. It's the same every morning, and every morning for just a second before the day starts properly, you get this moment. Just you and the cold yard and the horses breathing behind you, and the town coming slowly awake. Robert Digby's voice breaks it. Baxter, move yourself. Robert Digby is the head ostler of the Bell Inn. He is 52 years old, which means he has been working with horses for roughly 40 of those years, and he looks like it. He is not a tall man, but he is wide, shoulders like a door frame, hands that could probably crush a horseshoe if he put his mind to it. A face that has been hit by weather and work and at least 1 horse hoof. There's a scar along his jaw, pale white against the weathered skin, where a young horse caught him a glancing blow about 20 years ago. He told you about the hoof in your first week, told you matter-of-factly, the way you might mention a particularly rainy Tuesday. The horse had been spooked by a dog. He'd been careless, standing too close. The lesson was simple. Never stand where a horse can kick you, because the horse will eventually kick you, and the horse doesn't mean anything by it. It's just that horses are half a ton of animal running on instinct, and instinct doesn't care about your jaw. You think about that lesson every single morning when you go into the stalls. Digby is carrying a lantern. The warm orange light swings as he crosses the yard, making shadows jump. The York Express is due in at 5, he says. 4 horses changed, 2 passengers eating, 1 overnight. I need the greys ready in the south stalls, water and hay topped up before they arrive. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. The greys have been standing since yesterday evening. Give them a proper look over before you harness them. The near side leader had a loose shoe 2 days ago. I've had it fixed, but check it. Yes, sir. And Baxter. He pauses. The lantern swings. His face is all shadows and orange light. Don't let me find you talking to the passengers. Not at 5 in the morning. Not ever, without good reason. Last week Will had that gentleman from Leicester waiting 15 minutes while he explained the coaching routes north of here. 15 minutes. You know what 15 minutes means in this yard? You've learned enough to know it's not really a question. It means a coach leaves late, you say. It means every connection after it leaves late. It means angry letters and angry gentlemen and Mr. Hartley getting angry at you. Digby nods, once, like a judge delivering a verdict. Go. The 3 grey horses are in the south stalls. They are proper coaching horses. Not the big heavy draft animals that pull freight wagons. Not the light riding horses the gentry use. These are in-betweens, strong enough to pull a loaded coach and fast enough to make decent time on a good road. Their coats are a light dappled grey, almost silver in the lantern light. 2 mares and a gelding, and they know each other so well they can probably communicate through the partition boards between their stalls. The near-side leader, the one with the repaired shoe, is a mare named Duchess. Digby named her Duchess. Digby names all the horses, which is either sentimental or practical, depending on how you look at it. He says you can't manage an animal you can't identify quickly. A name is just a tool. You lift Duchess's near forefoot. She cooperates, leaning her weight to the offside. An old professional habit. The shoe is there. You run your thumb around the edge. The nails are all seated properly. The shoe is tight against the hoof wall. You check the hoof itself for anything wedged between the shoe and the foot. Sometimes gravel. Sometimes worse. Sometimes nothing. But you check anyway, because checking is what keeps horses sound, and horses being sound is what keeps coaches moving, and coaches moving is what keeps the bell in business. The hoof smells like hoof, like warm earth and something slightly biological. You've stopped noticing it. You notice when it smells wrong now, which is different and more useful. Duchess puts her foot down and turns her head to look at you. She's got a white star on her forehead, and the intelligent, slightly disdainful look that grey horses seem to develop as a matter of species policy. Good morning to you too, you say quietly. You top up her hay first, then water. The water in the trough is cold enough that your hand goes numb when you test it with your fingers. You fill it from the pump anyway. A cold drink is better than a dirty one. And haul 2 full buckets across the yard in the dark, your left boot squelching with every step. By the time you've done all 3 horses, your shoulders are aching, and your hands are red from the cold and the bucket handles. But the horses are ready, watered, fed, their coats quick brushed, their harness hanging ready on the wall. 20 minutes of work. The church bells haven't struck 5 yet. You stand in the yard for a moment, listening. The inn is waking up. The Bell Inn is not one building. It never is with coaching inns. They grow, these places. Add a wing here when business is good. Buy the neighbouring property when it comes available. Extend the stable block when the coaches come faster. A coaching inn is always becoming something more than what it was, and rarely becomes more graceful in the process. The Bell started as a medieval house. You can see the original bones of it in the oldest part of the ground floor. The low ceilings, the thick walls, the windows that were clearly designed for a different era. Then someone in the 17th century added the main block. 3 stories, brick, more room for guests, a proper dining room, a large kitchen. Then the stable yard was reorganised. Then the coach houses added. Then the ostler's quarters, the brew house, the various smaller buildings that cluster around the yard like children around an adult. The result is a place that has no clear shape from the outside. From the high street it presents a respectable Georgian face. Brick, regular windows, the bell sign hanging out front, painted yellow and black, swinging in the wind. Come around the side into the yard and you're in something older and more complicated. At 5 in the morning the inn is waking up in order of necessity. The kitchen first, you can hear it from the yard. The sound of iron on iron as Agnes, the cook, begins to organise the day. Agnes is a woman of about 45, built like a millstone, with hands that are red up to the elbows from decades of hot water and hard work. She has a voice that carries through walls. Where is the bread for the upstairs? That's Agnes, somewhere in the depths of the kitchen. I told Mary last night, fresh bread for the upstairs in the morning, and there's no fresh bread because she's left it on the shelf like a fool. Tell her from me. Tell her. A murmuring response. Something about the bread still being in the oven. A pause. Then get it out of the oven before it burns, girl. Don't just look at it. Next, the tap room. The tap room is the public bar, the part of the inn where ordinary travellers and local townspeople drink. It's below street level at the front of the inn. You go down 3 steps to reach it, and it smells of yesterday evening. Spilled ale, pipe smoke, the specific smell of a room full of people that still hasn't quite aired out. A boy named Ned is sweeping it out. Ned is 12 or 13. Nobody seems entirely sure, including Ned himself. And he sweeps with the concentrated misery of someone who's been told to sweep many times and resents it every time. You can see him through the small window as you cross the yard. Just the top of his head moving back and forth in rhythm with what you suspect is resentful muttering. Then the chambermaid stares. Mary, the head chambermaid, comes down from the upper floors carrying an armful of linen. She's perhaps 25, with the economical movements of someone who spends 12 hours a day moving between rooms and has learned to never waste a step. She sees you in the yard and nods. No words, just a nod, which is the chambermaid equivalent of a lengthy conversation. She goes into the laundry room. The door closes. Inside, water will be heating. The first load of linen from the overnight guests who are already beginning to stir will go in before the sun comes properly up. And finally, Mr. Hartley, Edmund Hartley, innkeeper of the Bell, appears at the upper window of the inn's south-facing wall. He's dressed already. Brown coat, grey breeches, the serious working-day clothes of a businessman in the morning. He's not particularly tall, not particularly anything to look at, honestly, except for his eyes, which are a very pale blue and which miss very little. He surveys the yard, his horses, his employees moving through the cold morning dark. His gaze finds you. You straighten up. He looks for exactly 3 seconds. Then he turns away from the window. You don't know if that's good or bad. In 4 months you haven't worked that out yet. You hear it before you see it. The sound arrives first. The distant thunder of hooves on road, the crack of a coachman's whip, the rolling percussion of iron-shod wheels on stone. It comes from the south, which means it's the London to York run, which left the White Horse Inn in Fetter Lane at 8 o'clock yesterday morning and has been travelling through the night. The sound grows, and then the coach turns into the Bells Yard at something close to full gallop, which is exactly as alarming as it sounds. 4 horses, dark with sweat, breathing in great plumes of vapour, the coach behind them bouncing and swaying on its leather suspension straps. The coachman on his box 6 feet up, wrapped in a box coat so thick he looks twice his actual size, pulling back on the reins with his full weight. The horses come to a stop in the middle of the yard. Just. The coachman's arms are shaking with the effort. "York Express," he announces to no one in particular. His voice is hoarse from a night of shouting at horses. 4 for change. 2 down. 2 passengers eating, his guard confirms from the back, unhooking the luggage boot. The guard is younger than the coachman, armed with a blunderbuss. It's still in the boot, thankfully, and looks like he hasn't slept in 24 hours. The yard erupts. You and Will and the 2 stable boys who are already positioned and waiting move in on the horses simultaneously. This is the critical thing about a horse change. Speed. The coach is scheduled to leave again in 12 minutes. 12 minutes is the arrangement. 12 minutes for the tired horses to come off, the fresh horses to go on, and the coach to continue north. Every minute over 12 costs money and reputation. Will takes the near side leader. You take the offside leader. The 2 stable boys take the wheelers. The tired horses come off in 2 movements. Unbuckle the traces, lead the horse clear, have them ready for the stable. Your hands move through the harness almost without thinking now. 4 months ago, you couldn't have done this in an hour. Now it takes less than 2 minutes. The tired leader you're leading is a bay horse, dark-coated and blowing hard, his sides heaving. You can feel the heat coming off him from 2 feet away. His bit is flecked with foam. He doesn't resist. He's too tired for that, and he knows the routine. But he bumps against you as you walk him toward the south stable, and the weight of him is substantial. 1/2 ton of exhausted animal leaning on you because the ground feels better when something's leaning on it. "Easy," you tell him. "Easy. You're done." He makes a noise that might be acknowledgement and might be general horse opinion about the night he's just had. Into the stall. Unbridle him. He drops his head immediately and goes for the hay. His breathing is already slowing. Horses recover fast when you let them. Back to the yard. Duchess and her 2 grey companions are already moving into position. Will has the near-side leader. Digby himself has appeared from somewhere and is handling the offside wheeler, moving around the horse with the practised calm of a man who has done this approximately 10,000 times. Harness up. Buckle traces. Check, check, check. The coachman is already back on his box. His leather apron is stained with what you hope is just mud. His face, what you can see of it under the hat brim, is the face of a man who's been doing this for 20 years and plans to do it for 20 more, or until his body gives out, whichever comes first. The guard is dealing with the 2 passengers. They've climbed down from the coach, a man and a woman, both bundled up against the March cold, and they're being ushered toward the inside door by the night boy. Warm room, food, a chance to use the necessary before getting back in the coach for another 5 hours. "All fast," Digby calls. "Fast," Will answers. "Fast," you confirm. The lead traces are checked. The wheeler's breeching straps are checked. The coachman doesn't look down. He's already calculating the next stage, the state of the road, the wind, whether those grey mares are going to give him trouble on the hill north of here. Right, he says. His foot taps the board. The guard climbs back up to his perch. On, the coachman calls. The fresh horses move into the traces. The coach rocks forward, picks up pace, turns out of the yard gate and onto the high street. Gone. The whole thing has taken 11 minutes and 40 seconds. You know because you've been counting. It's a habit now. Digby looks at the gate where the coach has disappeared. Baxter, he says. Sir. The bay horse in the south stall. Walk him in 20 minutes. He's been working all night. He needs to keep moving or he'll stiffen up. Yes, sir. And wash your hands before you go near anything in that kitchen. He walks away without further comment. Will appears at your shoulder. He's grinning the way Will always grins, like everything is slightly funnier than it should be. 11:40, he says. He must have been counting too. Personal best. Digby wants me to walk the bay. I'll walk the bay. You owe me for this morning with the trough. The trough was supposed to be my job and you did it. I did it because you were still asleep. I was resting. You were snoring. Will's grin doesn't waver. Nothing really waveres Will. He's from Bristol, which he seems to feel gives him a kind of metropolitan sophistication that renders him immune to the ordinary inconveniences of life, like cold and early mornings and being wrong. Go get breakfast, he says. Agnes is in a mood, but there's porridge. I saw her making it before. The kitchen of the Bell Inn is the engine that keeps everything else running. It occupies a long room at the back of the inn's ground floor, running east to west behind the main dining room. It is roughly 30 feet long and 12 feet wide, which sounds like a reasonable size until you account for the fact that it contains a fireplace you could roast a whole pig in, an oven big enough for 8 loaves at once, 2 sets of pot hooks, a dresser 6 feet tall loaded with crockery, 3 working tables, and at any given hour between dawn and midnight, somewhere between 3 and 8 people all trying to work in the same space simultaneously. Agnes rules it with the air of a general who has seen wars. She's not unkind exactly. She fed you properly from your first day, which was more than you expected, and when you got a bad cough in February she put a bowl of chicken broth outside the stable block door with your name on it, which nobody mentioned and she would have denied. But she moves through the kitchen with an absolute and total sense of her own authority, and anything or anyone that gets in the way of the kitchen's operation is dealt with promptly and without much ceremony. You step through the kitchen door and are immediately hit by a wall of warmth and smell. The fire is enormous. The kitchen fire at the Bell is never entirely out. It's banked down at night, but never extinguished. By morning it's been built back up to full going, and the heat of it hits you like a physical thing after the cold yard. Your face starts tingling immediately. The smell is porridge, wood smoke, bread from the oven, the deep animal smell of yesterday's meat fat in the dripping bowl beside the fire, coffee, actual coffee being prepared for the upstairs guests, and, underneath it all, the particular smell of a working kitchen that has been going for years. A smell you can't entirely identify, but which is made up of 100 smaller smells all layered together. Agnes is at the fire. She's standing with her back to you, stirring something enormous in an iron pot. Her arms moving in long, sweeping circles, steady as a mill wheel. The firelight plays across her back. Her hair is covered, her apron already stained from the morning's work, even though it can only be 5:30. Baxter! She hasn't looked up. She knew it was you from the sound of your boots on the flagstones. Morning, Mrs. Agnes. Hands. You go to the basin by the door. The water is warm, genuinely warm, because Agnes insists on a warm basin in the kitchen even at 5 in the morning, and anyone who argues with Agnes about kitchen arrangements is quickly invited to leave. You wash your hands. Horse and harness smell goes down the drain. Porridge on the table, Agnes says. Bread. Cold. I've not had time to butter it, but there's butter in the crock. The porridge is thick and grey and hot and exactly what your body requires. You eat standing at the kitchen table, the way servants eat here, not because anyone told you to, but because sitting down in the kitchen before the main breakfast service would be somehow wrong. A subtle social error that you absorbed without anyone explaining it. The kitchen has its own hierarchy, which intersects with, but is not quite the same as the general hierarchy of the inn. Agnes is absolute in the kitchen. Her word is final, her authority uncontested. Below her, Martha, the kitchen maid. Martha is 16 from nearby Northampton town, and she's currently peeling potatoes with the focused intensity of someone who's been told that these potatoes will need to be ready by 9, and it is currently 5:30. Peel and peel and peel, the curls of potato skin falling into the bucket. Then the scullery maid, whose name you're not entirely sure of because she's so new, started last week, about 12. She's washing pots in the scullery next door, and the sound of iron on stone comes through the doorway steadily, rhythmically, like a kind of music. And then the various temporary boys and girls who appear for the morning rush and disappear again. Children from nearby houses, earning pennies doing the most basic work. Today there are 2 of them, both about 10, sitting in the corner breaking bread into the sizes Agnes has specified, with the solemn efficiency of children who know this job will last exactly as long as it takes to do it and not a moment longer. Is Mr. Hartley down yet, you ask? He's in the office, Agnes says, going over last night's takings. A pause. Her spoon goes around. We had 36 covers at dinner, 3 private rooms, 2 overnight. Good night. A good night at the Bell is good for everyone. When business is good, Agnes buys better meat. When the meat is better, the food is better. When the food is better, Mr. Hartley is less tight about the coal for the kitchen fire. These things connect. You've learned that everything connects here. Every part of the Bell is in relationship with every other part, and those relationships run both ways. The quality of your hay affects the horses. The horses affect the coach change times. The coach change times affect the reputation. The reputation affects how many coaches stop here instead of the White Hart 3 streets away. How many coaches affects the money. The money affects whether you get paid, and Agnes gets her good meat, and the stable roof gets that patch fixed before it starts leaking properly. You are a single moving part in a machine with many moving parts. You knew that was true somewhere, but you're starting to actually feel it. The 2 passengers from the York coach, you say, they eating here? Already seated, Agnes gestures with her head toward the dining room. Bread and coffee. They've got an hour before the coach goes north again, so they'll want something proper. Tell Mary to get the eggs when she comes through. You finish your porridge. The bowl goes on the stack by the basin. The kitchen warmth at your back and the cold yard in front of you. The dining room of the Bell is the formal eating room, not the tap room. That's for locals and ordinary travellers, the sort of people who eat standing at a counter or at rough benches. The dining room is for guests who are paying for a room, and for travellers who are paying the dining room rate rather than the tap room rate. It's a decent room. Ceiling about 10 feet, plastered and painted. 3 tables, each seating 6. A fireplace on the east wall currently burning steadily. A window looking out onto the high street, still dark at this hour but beginning to show the first grey light of dawn. The 2 passengers from the York coach are at the table nearest the fire. The man is perhaps 50, a solid, prosperous sort of figure. Well dressed, but not extravagantly so. A good wool coat, a properly powdered wig that has admittedly suffered somewhat from 9 hours in a rocking coach, decent shoes with plain silver buckles. He has the hands of someone who works with paper rather than his body. A merchant, maybe, or a lawyer, or just a man of comfortable income going north on some errand or business. He looks tired. The kind of tired that isn't just one night without sleep, but is the particular exhaustion of a journey. The constant vibration, the jolts and lurches, the shared space with strangers, the bad food at bad stopping places. The woman is younger, perhaps 30, perhaps a little more. She might be his wife or his daughter or neither. She is sitting very straight, which takes a certain effort after 9 hours in a coach, and she has the look of someone who refuses to appear tired as a matter of principle. They look up when you come through with the clean linens Mary has asked you to bring through. You look at the floor, make yourself invisible. This is what you do in the dining room. You exist in it functionally, but not as a person. You are a pair of hands that bring things and take things away. The guests don't need you to be more than that. Boy, you stop. The man is addressing you. His voice isn't unkind, just the voice of a man who is accustomed to addressing people of your station and expects to be heard. Yes, sir. What time does the express leave? 6:30, sir. About an hour. He nods. Looks at the window. The first faint lightening of the sky outside. Good road north of here. Digby, the head ostler, sir, says the road to Kettering is fair. It's been dry this week. North of Kettering, I can't say. He nods again. Seems satisfied with this. Looks back at his coffee. You finish laying the linen and withdraw. In the corridor outside the dining room, you breathe out. It's a small thing, just a traveller asking about a road. But there's always a moment with the guests, particularly the better sort of guests, where you're aware of what you are in relation to what they are, and the distance between those two things. The distance is not hostile, it's not even particularly unfriendly, it's just there, like a wall. A transparent wall you can both see through perfectly well, and which neither of you will ever acknowledge exists. You go back to the yard. By 7 o'clock the Bell Inn is running at full pace. The overnight guests are stirring. 3 of them on the first floor. You know this because Mary has given you a list of rooms to carry hot water to, and there are 3 rooms on the list. The hot water goes up in copper jugs that are heavy enough when empty, and considerably heavier when full. You carry 2 at a time, 1 in each hand, your arms stretched down by the weight, the water sloshing close to the rim. The stone stairs have a strip of carpet on them, another of Agnes's wins over Mr. Hartley's thriftiness, and your boot soles make almost no sound. Room 3, a single gentleman travelling alone. You knock. He says something from behind the door. You set the jug down, knock again more firmly and say, "Hot water, sir." He says something else, louder. You take that as permission, open the door, set the jug on the washstand and withdraw, without looking at the man who is in the bed behind you. Room 4, empty. The couple who are in it checked out before dawn. Mary will clean it before noon. Room 7, a family, father, mother, and 1 child. They've been here since yesterday afternoon and they're going further west today. You knock, set down the jug, get thanked very specifically and warmly by the mother, who is clearly someone who notices the servants, which is rarer than you'd hope. Back downstairs. The yard is busy now. 3 coaches have come in since the York Express. 2 local routes and 1 private carriage whose owner, a lord or something adjacent to one from the crest on the door, wanted his horses rested and his carriage looked over while he took breakfast. The private carriage is in the coach house. Its pair of horses are in the best stalls, the ones with the cleanest hay and the newest buckets. Private carriages get the best stalls. This is not a spoken rule. It doesn't need to be. Will is brushing down one of the private horses. The horse is a bay, even darker than the tired York Express horse, with the kind of condition that comes from being properly fed and never overworked. Its coat has a depth to it that catches the morning sun, and the sun is up now, properly up, cold and pale. March sun, but real sunlight, touching the yard walls and making the whole place look slightly less grim. Who's the carriage, you ask? Will shrugs. Someone important. Hartley came out himself to see them in. Hartley coming out himself is the innkeeper's equivalent of a red carpet. He does it for genuinely significant guests, the sort who will tip properly, write favourable things in their journals, bring other significant guests with them, the sort whose good opinion is worth money. Going where? North. Digby says they'll be here till noon at least. Man's got business in town, or glances at you. His valet's in the tap room already. Young fellow, fancies himself. Valets. Gentlemen's valets. A class unto themselves in the world of servants, above the inn's own staff in some ways, because they travel with their employers and share their reflected status, but also entirely dependent on those employers in a way that the inn's permanent staff are not. There's always a slight tension between inn servants and travelling valets. You'll avoid the tap room until the valet leaves. The morning settles into its rhythm. This is the thing about the coaching inn that nobody tells you before you come, the rhythm of it, the way the day moves in pulses. A coach arrives, the yard fills with noise and motion and urgency. The coach leaves, the yard empties. A lull, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour, and then the next one. In between, there's work. There's always work. There's no standing idle in Digby's yard, but in the lulls, there's something else, a kind of quiet that sits differently from other kinds of quiet. The inn is still full of sounds. The kitchen, the tap room, the guests upstairs, horses in their stalls. But the urgency drains away. The yard breathes. In the March cold, the yard frost is retreating. The cobblestones are slightly icy in the shaded corners, treacherous if you're not watching your feet. The pump handle is cold enough that your palm stings when you touch it. But where the sun hits the south-facing stable wall, the stones are warming up. You lean against that wall for a moment, your shoulder blades on the rough stone, eyes half closed. The yard smells like cold and horse and, faintly, carried from the kitchen like cooking meat. Agnes is starting on the midday service already. The bell does a proper dinner at 2 o'clock. They call it dinner here, the main meal served in the early afternoon. And a dinner for 30-odd people requires hours of preparation. Across the yard you can see the brew house. The bell brews its own ale, has done for as long as anyone can remember. The brew house produces 2 main ales, a table beer, weak, the kind everyone drinks with meals, and a stronger ale for the evening trade. The hops and malt come in by wagon every few weeks, and on brewing days the smell of the brew house spreads across the entire yard, warm and slightly sweet and completely unlike anything else. Today is not brewing day, but the smell lingers in the walls. You think about home. Powick is a village, small, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone's business, which is either comforting or suffocating depending on who you are and what your business is. Your father works the land for Squire Pemberton, has done all his life. Your mother manages the house and the chickens and 3 younger children who are currently eating food you're no longer competing with them for. The letter of introduction that got you here came from Squire Pemberton himself. Who knows Edmund Hartley through some chain of connections you don't entirely understand. The squire thought you were a likely lad, which was kind of him. Your father was pleased but didn't say so. Your mother cried when you left, which she also didn't say anything about, but which was very obvious. You've written once. It cost you a penny for the paper and the writing was laborious. You can read better than you write, and the letter came out short and stiff and didn't say half of what you meant. You described the inn and the horses. You didn't describe the cold, the exhaustion, the homesickness that hit you in the second week like a physical illness. You're better now. The homesickness doesn't keep you awake the way it did. You've got used to the sounds, the coach bells at all hours, the horses, the voices of travellers from every part of England passing through. You've got used to the food, which is plain but adequate and better than what you had at home, honestly. You've got used to the work, which is harder than farm work in some ways, and easier in others. What you haven't entirely got used to is the people, not the guests. The guests are brief and interchangeable, faces and coats and purposes that pass through and leave, not even your fellow servants, who you've mostly worked out. It's Mr. Hartley. Edmund Hartley is a difficult man to read. He runs the bell with obvious competence. He knows the road schedules, knows the horse prices, knows which suppliers are honest, knows every regular traveller by name and what they're likely to want. He manages Agnes and Digby and Mary and the rest of his staff with the practised calm of someone who's been doing it a long time and expects to continue. But he watches. He's always watching. Not in a threatening way, more in the way of a man who considers information to be valuable and is always collecting it. You never quite know what he's learning about you. Last week he asked you, quietly, in the yard, whether you thought the near-side grey mare, Duchess, Digby's name for her, was going soft in the left stifle. Just asked you, out of nowhere, while you were filling a water trough. You'd said you'd noticed her occasionally favouring the leg on cold mornings, but she moved out of it after walking. He'd nodded, said nothing, walked away. The next day a horse doctor came and examined the mare and pronounced her sound, but recommended she not work in cold weather until April. You don't know if your observation led to that or whether Hartley was already planning it. You suspect the first, which means he was asking for your genuine opinion, which means something. You're not sure what. By 10 o'clock, the bell is fully, comprehensively, aggressively awake. The high street outside is busy. You can hear it from the yard, the constant noise of a market town on a Thursday, which is market day. Carts and people and animals and voices. The bell sits on the edge of the market square, and on market days the tap room fills early with farmers and traders who've come in from the surrounding villages and need somewhere warm and somewhere serving. The tap room itself is below you as you cross to the far end of the yard. You can see in through the low window, fogged from the body heat inside. A dozen men already in there, shoulders touching at the crowded benches. Ned serving, moving quickly between the barrels and the tables with the efficiency of someone who's learned that slow service leads to complaints, and complaints lead to Agnes being told, and Agnes being told leads to consequences. 2 more coaches in the yard, a local route, a small post-chaise carrying mail, and the private carriage's lord is having his vehicle checked over by the wheelwright who comes in twice a week. The wheelwright is going around the carriage's 4 wheels with a practised eye, testing spokes, tapping rims. His mallet makes a dull, rhythmic sound against the wood. Will comes up beside you, breathing hard from a run. "Bath Road's been delayed," he says. "Some trouble with the road between here and Towcester. Mud, probably. They're sending the replacement team out instead of waiting. That's 4 horses Digby hasn't put out. He knows. He's already reorganising." Will's expression shifts. Also, the important man upstairs. His name is Sir Francis Vane. He's a member of Parliament. You consider this. For where? Some pocket borough up north somewhere. He's going back to it. Will drops his voice, though there's nobody near enough to hear. His valet told George in the tap room, "Sir Francis is carrying papers, something political. He's been in London for the session, and now he's going back to his constituency." Papers, political papers, an MP travelling north. You think about this for a moment, and then, because you are a 17-year-old ostler's boy in a coaching-in yard and not a political actor, you stop thinking about it. "Good for him," you say. Will grins. George also says the valet mentioned there's a reward notice out on the Bath Road. A reward notice? Highwayman. Working the stretch between Towcester and here for the last week. Taken 3 coaches. Will says this with the slightly excited tone of someone recounting something alarming at a comfortable distance. The comfortable distance, you reflect, is the distance between now and this evening. By evening, the Bath Road coaches will be coming through. Let me stop here and be honest with you for a moment, because whenever you bring up highwaymen in the context of the 18th century, there's a version of the story that's all romance. The dashing gentleman of the road, the dramatic hold-up, the silver-tongued robber who steals from the rich and returns the lady's jewellery with a bow. That version isn't entirely false. There were highwaymen who cultivated that image deliberately. Dick Turpin, who was already 50 years old by 1749 and had been hanged at York 10 years before, spent years having his image cleaned up and romanticised until he became practically a legend. But the reality on the Bath Road in 1749 is somewhat less romantic. Most highwaymen are desperate men who've run through every other option. Former soldiers sometimes discharged from the army and left to manage without pension or position. Men who've been transported and come back. Men who've lost at gambling or drink or business, and found themselves facing debtor's prison or starvation. Some are young and foolhardy, attracted by the glamour, not thinking clearly about the odds which are get caught once and you hang. Not transportation, not prison, hanging. They work alone mostly or in pairs. They know the roads. They know where a coach has to slow for a hill or a turn. They know which coachmen carry pistols and which rely on speed. They are not usually interested in violence. Violence attracts attention. A robbery completed quickly and quietly is better than a robbery that ends with someone shot, even if the someone is the robber. But occasionally things go wrong. Occasionally a traveller resists or a guard is faster than expected. The reward notice on the Bath Road is for a man described as tall, dark-coated, riding a dark horse. 2 witnesses say he's young, 20s maybe. He's taken purses and a jewellery case and a strong box from a merchant's carriage. Nobody has been physically harmed yet. Yet. This is what Will told George told him. Third-hand information in a coaching-in travels fast and loses accuracy at each exchange. You file it away with appropriate skepticism, but you don't forget it. Noon arrives in waves. The church bells, All Saints again, and St. Giles from the other side of town, and the smaller bell of St. Peter's that has a slightly cracked sound like it has a cold, ring the hour and the inn shifts gear. The midday rush at a coaching inn is different from the morning rush. The morning's about coaches, horses, movement. The midday is about people who want to eat and rest and eat some more. Travellers who've been on the road since dawn and have another several hours ahead of them. Local men coming off the market. A few townspeople who use the Bell's dining room as a regular habit. Agnes's kitchen has been building toward this moment since 6 this morning. You smell it from the yard, roasting meat. The proper smell of roasting meat, from a fire that's hot and even, fat dripping and sizzling, the skin going brown. There's a shoulder of mutton on the spit. You know this because you carried the mutton in from the larder at Agnes's instruction before breakfast. And something else underneath it, a stew of some kind, and the bread you can smell constantly now. 5 or 6 loaves coming out of the oven in rotation through the morning. Your stomach makes itself known. You've had porridge and that's it. The morning's been too busy for a second meal. Agnes, you put your head around the kitchen door. Any chance of bread? Agnes is at the central table, doing something elaborate with pastry. Her rolling pin is moving at speed. She doesn't look up. Heel of the loaf on the side. Take it and go. I've got service in an hour. The heel of the loaf is the end of a loaf that came out of the oven this morning. It's hard on the outside and soft and hot inside, and it smells like bread, honestly. Like the best possible version of bread the thing bread is trying to be. You slather it with butter from the crock, which is cold from the larder and barely spreadable, and eat it in 3 bites standing in the kitchen doorway. The butter is cold, the bread is hot. The contrast is violent and excellent. Martha the kitchen maid catches your eye across the room and grins briefly. She's up to her elbows in something. Martha is a good sort. She's from Northampton itself, has family nearby, goes home on her half-day Sunday, which means she has a life outside this kitchen that comes with parents and siblings, and a small house in one of the streets off Gold Street. She seems to regard this as ordinary, which it is, which is why it sometimes seems extraordinary to you. You have 1 half-day on Sundays too. You've spent most of them walking around Northampton, which is a town of about 5,000 people, and therefore, to your Worcestershire eyes, absolutely a city. There's the market square with its cross, and the church of All Saints with its dome on top, a dome right in the middle of a market town in Northamptonshire, and the streets of shops and tradespeople, and everything that constitutes the organised chaos of a trading town. On your last Sunday off, it rained. You found a bookshop and spent an hour in it reading, which the owner allowed because you bought a pamphlet for 2p, a description of the road system of England, distances between towns, which inns had good reputations. You read it in the loft over 2 evenings. The Bell Inn is mentioned, described as one of the better establishments on the Northampton stretch of the London to Birmingham road. You folded the pamphlet and put it under your straw mattress. You carry plates. This is your secondary occupation on busy days, supplementing the dining room service when Mary needs hands. You carry plates from the kitchen to the dining room and take them back when they're empty. And sometimes you carry glasses, and sometimes you carry bread, and sometimes you just stand near the serving counter and wait to be useful, which is its own specific skill. The dining room at noon has 8 guests. The two overnight travellers who are staying on. One is a linen merchant waiting for someone who hasn't arrived yet, visibly anxious. The other is a woman of about 40 travelling alone, which is unusual enough that you notice it, with a small dog in a basket that she keeps under her chair and feeds pieces of her mutton to when she thinks nobody's looking. Everyone is looking, but nobody says anything. At the corner table, a table set slightly apart from the others, Sir Francis Vane is eating. He's a man of about 55. The wig is freshly powdered, his valet has been busy, the coat's good quality, dark blue, with silver buttons. He has the kind of face that has made decisions for a long time. Settled, used to its own authority, neither cruel nor particularly kind. He is eating with concentration and without visible pleasure. The way you eat when eating is something that needs to be completed rather than enjoyed. His valet stands behind his chair, not eating, not sitting, just standing in the particular upright position of a personal valet who is on duty, which means more or less always, and whose job is to be present and useful and visible without being obtrusive. The valet is younger than you expected, maybe 25, very well dressed for a servant, proper coat, good shoes, a wig that's smaller than his employer's but clearly of decent quality. He catches you looking and looks back with an expression of mild condescension that you suspect he practices. You go back to carrying plates. Mary appears at your shoulder. "The gentleman in the corner is going north this afternoon," she says quietly, in the efficient conspiratorial mode of inn-servants exchanging essential information. "His carriage is ready at 3. Make sure Digby knows. The horses have been in the best stall since this morning." He knows. Tell him again. Sir Francis tipped Mr. Hartley a crown on arrival. A crown is 5 shillings. 5 shillings is more than 3 weeks of your wages. I'll tell Digby. The afternoon brings the southbound Bath Road coaches. 3 in 3 hours, which is a busy run. The road south of Northampton toward Towcester, and then onward to Oxford and Bath, was one of the great coaching routes of England. Busy, well maintained in the better sections, carrying passengers who range from wealthy tourists doing the full Bath season to commercial travellers to the occasional transported criminal going the wrong direction. The first 2 coaches come in and go out without incident. You do the horse changes, both times under 7 minutes, which is good but not exceptional. The second coach has a broken strap on the near side wheeler's breeching harness, which means a repair, which means 5 minutes of you holding a restless horse while the coachman does the repair himself, because a coachman who can't fix his own harness is not much use, and cursing in a steady undertone that you choose not to listen to specifically. The third coach arrives at 4 o'clock in the afternoon with the guard riding up front next to the coachman rather than on the back step where he's supposed to be. When the guard is riding up front with the coachman, it means something happened. The coach comes into the yard and stops, and you can see even before anyone speaks that the atmosphere is different. The passengers, 3 inside, 2 on top, come down from the coach with the particular speed of people who are very glad to be somewhere that has walls. The coachman climbs down. He's a big man, used to dealing with situations by virtue of his size and his very loud voice, and the fact that he's generally 6 feet above the problem. Right now he looks shaken in a way that his size isn't helping. "Hartley," he calls. Mr. Hartley is in the yard within 30 seconds. He moves fast for a man of his build when required. "We were stopped," the coachman says, "south of Towcester, mile past the crossroads where the old oak is. Single man on a dark horse." The yard goes very quiet. "Anyone hurt?" Hartley asks. "No." The coachman runs his hand across the back of his neck. He took a purse from the gentleman inside and something from the woman. A small case, she says it had her jewellery. Guard had his piece, but the man had his pistol up before we'd properly stopped. The guard is now coming around from the front of the coach, his blunderbuss held low. He looks less shaken than the coachman and more angry. I had him for a moment, the guard says. His jaw is tight. When he pulled back to go, I had him. He stops. It was too close to the coach. I didn't want to risk the passengers. You did right, Hartley says. His voice is absolutely level. Not reassuring exactly. Too businesslike for that. But authoritative in a way that seems to steady the man. Go inside. Get warm. I need a description. The passengers. 2 men and a woman from inside and 2 young men from the roof, who have the wind-burned look of people who've been riding outside in March for hours. The woman who was robbed is about 35, very pale, her hands clasped together in front of her. Her maid, a girl of perhaps 16, is hovering close. Mrs. Ashford, Hartley says. He knows her name. Of course he does. She's been through before. My grandmother's brooch was in that case, the woman says. Her voice is controlled. The kind of control that takes effort. The pearls. I've had them since I was a child. Hartley takes her hands, both of them, in his. It's the gesture of a man who knows exactly what is required. I'll send word to the magistrate immediately, he says. We've had a notice about this man all week. They have a description. There are people looking for him. He doesn't say we'll find him or we'll get them back. He's too honest for that. But his hands are steady holding hers, and that seems to be what she needs. Mary, he calls without looking around. Mary's already there, appearing at his elbow like she's been summoned. Room 6 for Mrs. Ashford. Tea, whatever she needs. Of course. Hartley releases Mrs. Ashford's hands, turns to the coachman. The description. Let's go to the office. They go. The yard slowly returns to its usual noise, but underneath it, a current you can feel. A robbed coach isn't rare. It's not even particularly shocking. Not on the Bath Road in 1749. Highwaymen are a known hazard of the road like mud and broken axles. The coaches carry guards. Sometimes that's enough and sometimes it isn't. But the robbed woman's face, the brooch that was her grandmother's, that's not an abstract hazard. That's a specific loss. Will appears beside you. His grin is absent for once. Did you hear? I was standing here. Same man as the other. Robberies? Has to be. Will looks at the gate where the coach came in. They'll catch him eventually. They always do. The roads aren't as big as they look. You can only use the same stretch so many times before someone spots you. If they catch him, what happens? Will looks at you. He knows what happens. Everyone knows what happens. You know too, but you want to hear someone say it. He hangs, Will says simply. If they take him alive, they might not. A pause. His choice, Will adds. Not without sympathy, but firmly. He made it every time he rode out. You think about the woman's hands, clasped together, the brooch that was her grandmother's. At 3 o'clock, as scheduled, Sir Francis Vane's carriage is brought out. The horses, the 2 dark bays, properly rested and fed and groomed, are harnessed to the private carriage with Digby supervising every buckle. Sir Francis's carriage is a good one. Not the absolute grandest style, but solid, well maintained, with a family crest on the door that you've looked at and can't quite make out. Sir Francis comes out of the inn's main door at precisely 3. He's wearing his travelling coat now, heavier, darker, more practical. The valet carries a small leather case. Hartley is there to see him off, of course. They exchange a few words you're too far away to hear. Hartley nods several times, the nod of a man receiving information he'll act on. A final handshake. Sir Francis turns toward the carriage. His eyes go across the yard, not sweeping it for anything specific, just the automatic scan of a man who's made a lot of these departures and is checking that everything is in order. His gaze stops on you for a fraction of a second. You're standing by the stable door with a lead rope in your hands. There's no reason for him to stop on you. You're no one. But something must have registered. Your face, maybe. The alertness in it after the afternoon's news. Because he says, addressed at no one in particular, though you're the closest. Bad road south, I hear. Yes, sir. There was a robbery earlier today. I know. He's putting on his gloves. There's always a robbery somewhere. The trick is to not be on that stretch at that time. He pulls the second glove tight. Magistrates move too slowly. Too much paperwork and not enough boots. He gets into the carriage. The footman closes the door. The valet climbs up beside the coachman. Sir Francis's own coachman, a different man from the inn's coachman, who travels with the carriage always. The carriage moves out of the yard. You watch it go. Too much paperwork and not enough boots. The words of a man who makes law, offered casually to an ostler's boy, as if the law's failures are weather. Interesting in its way. Maddening in another. The yard gate swings closed. By 5 in the afternoon the light is going. March light. It comes reluctantly in the morning and leaves early in the evening, and in between it's a pale, thin, honest sort of light that doesn't flatter anything. In the yard it turns the cobblestones grey and makes the stable walls look older than they are. The lanterns go up. This is one of the small rituals you've come to associate with the Bells Day. Every evening before the light is fully gone, the outdoor lanterns are lit. 4 of them on iron brackets. 2 by the yard gate, 1 above the stable door, 1 by the kitchen entrance. They burn tallow, which is cheaper than wax and has a specific smell, slightly animal, slightly acrid, that you associate entirely with evening now. The light they throw is orange and uneven, making bright pools and dark shadows between. The yard in lantern light is a different place from the yard in daylight. The familiar geometry becomes something more theatrical. Shadows move with the lantern swinging in the wind. The horses, visible through the stable door, look enormous and strange. Will is cleaning harness. This is the end of day work. Go through the harness from the day's coaches, clean it, oil the leather, check for wear. Harness in regular use needs constant attention. The leather dries and cracks. The metal fittings corrode. A broken trace on a working coach is a delay at best and a catastrophe at worst. You're doing the same across the stable from Will. Your hands move through the work automatically. Check the stitching. Feel for dry spots in the leather. The oil goes on with a cloth, and the smell of harness oil is one of the smells that is completely, the bell to you now, inseparable from the place. Evening service tonight, Will says. Good day for it. Thursday. Thursday evenings at the Bell mean the regular local custom that supplements the coaching trade. Farmers and tradespeople who come in after their day's work, who drink the Bell's ale and eat Agnes's cold meats and bread, and occasionally get into arguments that require Mr. Hartley's diplomacy to resolve. It's not the social event it might become on a Saturday, but it's steady. Agnes was asking about the Kettering farmers, Will continues. The big order of game pies she made. Reckons they'll be here by 7. Agnes's game pies are locally celebrated. She makes them twice a week when the game comes in from the estates. Rabbit and pigeon mostly, occasionally pheasant, once memorably a hare. And they sell out every time. They're the size of a man's head, encased in thick pastry that absorbs the juices from the filling, and they cost 4p each, which in the evening trade is very good value. The smell of them cooking starts at about 4 and is responsible for a measurable increase in the number of people who find themselves walking past the bell at around 6. Your stomach is making its position known again. You've had porridge and bread, nothing since. The midday kitchen was too busy to request anything properly, and the afternoon's events drove food out of your head. After service, you say, Agnes will give us the leftover pies. If there are leftover pies. This is genuinely uncertain. Sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. Digby finds you as you're finishing the harness. He comes into the stable with his lantern and does his evening round, looking at each horse in turn, checking their condition, running a practised hand along a leg here and checking a hoof there. His face gives nothing away as he goes. Some of what he sees pleases him and some doesn't, and the only way you know which is by what he says afterward. He comes to stand beside you. The bay from the York Express this morning, he says. How did he look when you walked him? Sound, no heat in the legs, ate his hay properly. Digby nods. He's watching the bay horse in question, who is currently standing peacefully in his stall, with the self-contained dignity of a horse who's had a difficult night and is now having a good morning and considers both events closed. You counted the change time, Digby says. It's not a question. He somehow knows. 11:40, you say. A long pause. 9 minutes is what we aim for, Digby says. 9 minutes means a fresh team and a checked coach and no shortcuts. 11:40 is good. It's not exceptional. What's exceptional? He thinks about this. Genuinely thinks about it. Which Digby does when you ask him a real question. He doesn't perform wisdom. He actually considers. 7:30, he says. 7:30 and you know nothing was missed. You can do that if you've got the right team of people and the right 4 horses and the conditions are right. I've done it 3 times in 30 years. Once in summer, dry yard, calm horses, easy harness. Once in spring. Once on a night run in fog, which I don't recommend. He pauses. The fog night was 7:22, he says. I count 2. You feel something shift in the conversation, the quality of it, like a door opening slightly. Why do you count, you ask? Digby looks at you sideways. The lantern light makes the scar on his jaw very visible, pale and precise. Because the number tells you something, he says. Not about today, about the trend. If your change time goes up over 2 weeks, if it drifts from 9 minutes to 12 to 15, something's wrong. Could be a horse going lame slowly. Could be a piece of harness wearing out. Could be one of the boys getting lazy. You can't see those things unless you're measuring. He moves along to the next stall. You're not a bad hand with the horses, he says, as he's walking away, not looking back. You stand there with your cloth and your harness oil. That's the most Digby has ever said to you at once that wasn't instruction. That might be the most he's said to anyone who isn't instructing them or being instructed by them. You go back to the harness. The Bell's evening service is an exercise in organised chaos. By 7 in the evening the taproom is full. You can hear it from the yard. The noise of perhaps 30 people in a room built for 25, all talking, some of them singing a bit. The thud of tankards on wood. The smell of tobacco smoke has begun its migration out of the taproom and into the yard. Agnes's game pies have been collected by various hands and distributed and eaten at a rate that suggests they were never going to be left over. You're back on stable duty for the evening. The later coaches, when they come, often need handling in the dark, and the evening horses are a different set from the morning ones, rested and ready. You've done the feeds, done the water, the stalls are clean. Ned is in the yard filling a bucket with coal for the taproom fire. He moves with the resentful efficiency that is his normal mode of operation. Busy tonight, you ask? Packed. He hoists the bucket. Someone in there's been on the Bath Road today, the one that got robbed. Can't stop talking about it. News travels at the bell through some natural osmotic process. A traveller mentions something to the coachman, who mentions it to the ostler, who mentions it in the tap room, where it circulates and grows and picks up detail and loses accuracy and gains drama, and by the end of the evening has become a story. What are they saying? That the man was on a black horse and had 2 pistols and took everything worth having from every passenger, Ned considers. That's probably not right. 1 passenger, 1 case, 1 purse. Probably. Still. He picks up the coal bucket. They say he rides the same stretch every time, like he owns it. Someone will see him, you say. Someone already has, apparently. Old Tom Waits, the shepherd on the Towcester Road, says he sees a dark horse most evenings come through the field gate at the back of the common. Says it looks like the same horse. You think about this. Old Tom Waits, a shepherd on the Towcester Road, a field gate, an evening pattern. This is the kind of information that the magistrate's men are looking for. Whether it will reach them through Ned's taproom gossip chain before the highwayman moves on, or is caught by some other means, is another question. Did anyone tell Hartley? Ned shrugs. He probably knows. He hears everything. It is 9 in the evening. You're in the stable, doing the last rounds of the evening. The horses are quiet. The last coach came in at 8:30. A private chaise, no horse change needed, just stabling for the night, and the yard has settled into its late evening stillness. The taproom is still going, but quieting. The farmers will mostly leave by 10. The taproom closes at 11, which is the law in theory, and in practice varies depending on how agreeable Mr. Hartley is feeling. You're checking the water in Duchess's trough, the grey mare in the south stall, the one with the repaired shoe, when you hear the yard gate. Not a coach. The gate opens quietly, not flung wide the way it is for coaches, just opened, carefully. You freeze. Your lantern is on the hook by the stall door behind you. You're in the dark between Duchess and the gate. A figure in the yard, dark coat, dark horse. The horse comes through the gate quietly, its hooves barely sounding on the cobbles, shod with something muffled maybe, or just a very well-schooled horse. The man on it is tall, sitting deep in the saddle, moving with the particular stillness of someone who is trying to make no sound. Your heart is doing something complicated in your chest. The figure stops in the middle of the yard. He seems to be looking at the inn's back wall, the windows, counting something maybe, figuring out which rooms are occupied. Sir Francis Vane left at 3. He's gone. But the linen merchant upstairs, the one waiting for someone. He might have a strong box. Merchants often travel with strong boxes. The figure dismounts, ties the horse to the water trough in the centre of the yard with practised, quiet movements, and moves toward the inn's back stairs. You stand very still for approximately 3 seconds. Then Duchess turns her head and makes a noise. Not a whinny. Horses don't just whinny at nothing. Horses communicate. Duchess makes the low, questioning, slightly alarmed sound that horses make when they see something unfamiliar and aren't sure about it. It's not loud, but in the quiet yard it's a sound. The figure stops, turns, looks toward the stable. You're standing in the dark with your breath stopped, and Duchess's warm flank against your arm and your lantern behind you on its hook, casting orange light through the stable door. He can see the lantern light. He might be able to see you. You don't think. You pick up the lantern, step out of the stable door, hold it up. "Digby," you call. Your voice comes out steady, which surprises you. "Digby, there's a horse in the yard." Not what you meant to say, but it's what came out. The figure in the yard is completely still. And then the most important door in the world opens. The kitchen door, Agnes's kitchen door, throwing out a rectangle of warm light and the smell of the evening's dying fire. Agnes herself appears in the doorway. She takes in the yard in one sweeping look. The dark figure, the tied horse, you with the lantern. Agnes is not a small woman. Agnes is a woman who has been feeding 30 people a day since she was 16, and has the build and bearing to prove it. She fills the kitchen doorway. "Boy," she says, not to you, to the figure in the yard. Her voice has a particular quality, the voice that Agnes uses when something is wrong in her kitchen and needs to be corrected immediately. "This isn't the road." A long pause. The figure in the yard doesn't move. Then Digby appears from the stable at the other end, and Mr. Hartley from the side passage, because of course Hartley heard, because Hartley hears everything, as Ned said. And the dark-coated figure looks at the lantern in your hand and the kitchen door behind him, and the head ostler to his left and the innkeeper to his right, and makes the only calculation available to a man who is extremely outnumbered and whose horse is tied to a post. He runs. Not to his horse. The horse is on the wrong side of 3 people. He runs to the gate which he came in through, and he goes through it, and he's gone. His horse, confused and suddenly riderless, pulls at the tether once, feels it hold, and subsides into the philosophical acceptance of horses. The yard is quiet. Your hands are shaking. You notice this with a kind of detached interest. Mr. Hartley walks to the horse, examines it, looks at the gate where the figure disappeared. "Someone run for the watch," he says, quietly, level. The voice of a man who has already processed the event and moved to the next step. "I'll go," you say. The night watch in Northampton in 1749 consists of approximately 6 men for a town of 5,000, armed with staffs and lanterns and the theoretical authority of the law. In practice, they manage petty crime, drunks, and the occasional brawl, and are considered by most people to be the last resort, and by some people to be not even that. The watchman you find is at his box on the corner of Gold Street in the Market Square. He is 50, solid, carrying a staff and a lantern, and he listens to your information with the particular patience of someone who is deciding, while you speak, whether this rises to the level of requiring action. You tell him clearly, a man on a dark horse in the Bell's Yard attempted entry to the inn through the back stairs. He fled on foot when discovered. His horse is still at the bell. The horse registers. If the horse is there, it can be identified. A horse is not like a coat or a face. A horse can be matched to a description. And there has been, as you know, a description circulating. "I'll get Harcourt," the watchman says. Harcourt, you'll learn later, is the magistrate's man who's been handling the robbery cases. "Take me to the inn." You take him to the inn. And then things move in the way that things move when official processes engage. faster than you expect in some ways, slower than you'd want in others. By 11 o'clock the magistrate's man has been, examined the horse, taken statements from you and Agnes and Hartley, and departed with the horse in tow. The dark-coated man has not been caught. Not yet. He's on foot somewhere in the streets of Northampton, which gives him options that the magistrate's men are apparently pursuing. But the horse is evidence. The horse is a connection to the robberies. The horse is perhaps enough. Agnes makes tea. Real tea. The good stuff that goes in the locked box in the kitchen that's usually only for paying guests. She makes it without asking anyone's permission, which is her prerogative in this kitchen at this hour. You and Agnes and Digby and Mr. Hartley sit in the kitchen. Not together exactly. Agnes at the fire, you at the kitchen table, Digby on the stool by the door, Hartley standing at the window, but in the same room, drinking tea. This has never happened before. In 4 months, you've never sat in the same room as all three of them at once in any capacity resembling equality. It's the kitchen at 11 at night, tea in hand, and the strange levelling that follows an emergency. Quick thinking with the lantern, Agnes says, to you, not looking at you. I didn't know what else to do. You did the right thing. You made yourself visible. When something's wrong in a dark yard, you make yourself visible. You make noise. You're not clever about it. You make it known. A pause. Her spoon goes around in the cup. My husband taught me that. He was in the Navy. A small piece of Agnes's life offered into the room. Nobody says anything, but the silence is a good silence. Digby finishes his tea, sets the cup down. Baxter, he says. Sir, 8 minutes 50 tomorrow morning. That's what I want. He goes out to do his final stable round. Hartley watches him go, looks at you. You're from Worcestershire, he says. Yes, sir, Powick. I know a man who farms near there, Pemberton. He wrote my introduction, sir. Hartley nods, like he knew this and was checking it. He said you were reliable. That's what the letter said, that you were reliable. A pause. He was right, Hartley says. He goes back to his office. The door closes. Agnes collects the cups. She looks at you once, briefly, with an expression that in the kitchen firelight might be approval, or might just be the acknowledgement that you still exist and are not in the way. Go to bed, she says. Early start. You climb the ladder to the hayloft. The stable below is settled. 12 horses breathing, shifting slightly in their sleep. The warm animal smell rising up through the planks. The new horse, the dark bay that arrived under circumstances, is in the empty stall at the end, Digby having had someone lead it in and feed it while the watch was dealing with things. It is someone's horse, maybe someone bad, but it is also just a horse, and horses get fed regardless. Will is asleep already. His mouth is open. One arm is thrown over his face. You lie down on your mattress. The straw settles under you. The wool blanket pulls up to your chin. The March cold is in the loft. You can see your breath in the faint light from the crack in the planking. But the horses below are warm, and some of that warmth rises. Your hands are still faintly shaking, less than before. The tea helped. You go over it again. The yard, the dark coat. Duchess making a small questioning noise. The lantern in your hand and your voice calling out for Digby, not because it was clever, but because it was the first thing in your head. Agnes saying, you made yourself visible, and it worked. Not because of any particular bravery. Just because a person standing in a lit doorway calling a name is a social fact that disrupts a plan that depends on darkness and silence. The man ran. His horse didn't. Tomorrow, maybe, there's a connection to the robberies and a woman gets her grandmother's brooch back, or she doesn't because it's already sold, or the man gets away entirely because Northampton at night has enough dark streets. You don't know. You lie there and you don't know, and eventually you accept that not knowing is the natural state of things at 11 at night in a hayloft in March 1749. The church bell strikes midnight, 12 strokes, each one rolling out across the town, over the market square and the churches and the streets and the coaching inn with its lanterns and its horses and its people. Here is the thing about a coaching inn that I didn't tell you at the beginning, because you needed to be inside it first to understand it. The coaching inn is not just infrastructure, not just a place where coaches change horses and travellers eat mutton and sleep in acceptable beds. It is something more human than that. It is the place where England moves through itself. Think about what comes through the bell in a single week. Messages between the great houses of the north and the government in London, letters, papers, the correspondence that keeps the political world in motion, commercial goods, invoices, instructions, the paper sinew of trade, people themselves, merchants, lawyers, ministers, farmers, soldiers returning from service, families relocating, news about wars, about prices, about the weather in Scotland, about what Parliament is doing, about who died and who was born, and what the King said. All of it flows through the coaching inns. The inns are where the country talks to itself, and behind all of it, making all of it possible, are the people who do what you do. The ostlers and the stable boys and the kitchen maids and the chambermaids and the innkeepers and the coachmen. The people who get up before dawn and work after dark and whose names don't appear in any of the letters or ledgers that pass through their hands. You don't move the world, but you hold the world still for a moment so it can rest before it moves again. You feed it and water it and fix its harness and show it to its room and carry its hot water up in the morning and sweep out the room after it leaves. That is not nothing. That is actually everything. The inn breathes, even at midnight, even after the tap room is closed and the last coach has come in, and the kitchen fire is banked and the chambermaids are asleep and the guests are snoring. The bell is not entirely silent. The horses, their steady, warm breathing. A hoof shifted on the straw. The occasional soft sound that horses make in their sleep, a flutter of lips, a low exhalation. The settle of the building itself, old wood and old brick contracting in the night cold, making the sounds buildings make when they're not being politely quiet for human ears. Creaks, a faint groan somewhere in the oldest part of the structure, where the medieval bones are. Outside, the town. Even at midnight, Northampton isn't silent. A dog somewhere. A voice. Distant. Unclear. The scrape of a cart somewhere on the far side of the market square. Someone working in the dark for reasons of their own. The wind moving through the bell sign on the front of the building, making the painted bell swing slightly so that its shadow moves on the wall. And underneath all of it, continuous, the sound of the road. Even at midnight the road is alive. You can hear it if you listen. The distant sound of a coach, far away, pushing through the dark toward somewhere. The Great North Road doesn't sleep. There are mail coaches that travel at night, carrying their locked boxes of letters with a guard and a schedule that doesn't bend for weather or dark. The night mail from London to Edinburgh is already somewhere north of you, hours ahead, Its horses changed at every posting in on the route. The country moves through the dark and doesn't stop. Your eyes are heavy. The cold comes in through the gap in the boards. Not a gale, just the steady seep of March night air, finding every weakness in the loft's construction and leaking through. Your nose is cold. The top of your head is cold, the bit that isn't under the blanket. But the rest of you is warm enough from the horses below, warm enough from the wool blanket that cost you nothing given by the inn, warm enough from a stomach that has eventually been fed. Agnes relented at 11. There were 2 game pies left after all, slightly cold now, slightly dry at the edges from sitting, but still absolutely magnificent in the particular way of food you've earned. You ate yours standing by the kitchen fire in the quiet after the magistrate's man left. The pastry came apart in your hands. The filling was pigeon and rabbit, in a sauce that had been cooking since midday, rich and slightly dark and deeply savoury. You ate the whole thing and licked your fingers. Agnes watched you eat and said nothing, but she looked satisfied in the way Agnes looks satisfied when food does what food is for. "Tomorrow," she said as you finished, "I'm doing a leg of lamb. You can have the drippings on your bread. Drippings from a lamb roast on fresh bread." "Thank you, Mrs. Agnes." She made a noise that was not quite a dismissal. You lie in the loft now with the memory of the game pie and the promise of lamb drippings and the cold at your nose and the warmth everywhere else. Will snores, softly for once. The 3 stable boys at the far end are their usual pile. You think about Digby counting change times. 8 minutes 50. That's what he wants. You think about Hartley at the window. Reliable, he said. That was the word. You think about Agnes in the kitchen doorway, not small, not movable. You think about the dark figure in the yard and your own voice, calling into the empty air. 4 months. It doesn't feel like 4 months. It feels like both less and more than that. Less because you still sometimes wake up confused about where you are before the smell reminds you. More because the person who got off the wagon from Worcester in November already seems like someone you remember rather than someone you were. You've learned things that can't be put in a letter. You've learned the feel of good harness leather versus harness that needs oiling. Not with your eyes, but with your palms, your fingertips, the calibration your hands do now automatically. You've learned that a horse who holds their ears back while eating is uncomfortable somewhere and needs checking, and a horse who lays their ears back while you're near them is a different kind of uncomfortable and needs very different handling. You've learned that the best time to ask Digby a question is after the first coach of the morning, not before, when he's still doing the mental preparation for the day. You've learned that Agnes's moods follow the kitchen supply. When the meat from the butcher is good, Agnes is good. When the vegetables come in soft from a bad week at market, Agnes is difficult about it, but she's being difficult with the vegetables, not with you. You've learned that Mr. Hartley asks questions he already knows the answers to, and the answers he wants are honest ones. And if you give him the honest answer, he'll know what to do with it. You've learned that Mary the chambermaid has been at the Bell for 8 years, and knows more about the running of it than anyone except possibly Hartley himself, and she expresses this knowledge through a series of precise minimal actions that leave rooms in perfect order, and linen perfectly clean, and guests perfectly managed without any of them ever seeing how it's done. You've learned that the road doesn't care about you, about your tiredness or your cold foot, or the homesickness that hits you sometimes on Sunday evenings. The road comes through with its coaches and its passengers, and its news and its emergencies, and the bell receives it and processes it and sends it on its way. And this happens regardless of how you feel about it. You've learned to do it regardless of how you feel about it. That's not nothing. The bell-in has a heartbeat. You feel it now in a way you didn't in the first weeks, when everything was too new and too fast to feel anything but overwhelmed. The heartbeat is the coach's. Each arrival is a pulse. The yard fills with noise and motion and urgency, and then it empties, and in between is the regular steady work of preparation and maintenance. Feed, water, clean, repair, rest, feed, water. Your life organises itself around this rhythm in a way that your life in Powick never quite did. The farm had seasons, the big urgent beats of planting and harvest, but between them was the slow, continuous work of days without clear beginning or end. Here, the beginning and end are clear. The first coach is the beginning, the last coach is the end. Everything between is in service of one or the other, and you find, and this surprises you, that you like it, the clarity of it, the physical satisfaction of a horse change done well, a stall properly cleaned, harness repaired correctly before it breaks, the feeling of a machine working as it should. You are part of that machine. You're becoming more skilled at being part of it every day. In a year, maybe less if things go as they've been going, Digby might trust you with the morning preparations alone. The York Express coming in at 5, you making the decisions, you managing the yard. The thought is terrifying and excellent. 1 o'clock. The church bell confirms it. 1 stroke, pure and clear in the night air. Will turns over in his sleep. The straw rustles. The horses below have quieted entirely. A dozen large animals in their stalls sleeping the deep sleep of well-worked bodies. Their breathing is slow and even, and you can feel it through the boards, the warmth and the slow rhythm of it. The dark outside the loft's gap is absolute. No moon tonight, or it's behind the clouds. Just dark and the faint orange smear of the inn's remaining lanterns, and somewhere in the town a single window lit against the night. You think about the man in the dark coat. Somewhere in Northampton he's in a doorway or an alley, or he's managed to get out of the town on foot and he's on a road somewhere heading for whatever comes next. His horse is in the south stall of the Bell-Inn stable, eating the Bell-Inn's hay, unbothered by the human complications of its situation. He made a choice. He keeps making it. And the mathematics of that choice, as Digby might say, trend in one direction over time. You made a different choice tonight. Not by being braver or better, just by being there with a lantern when it mattered. Agnes was there too. Agnes. You smile in the dark, thinking of Agnes in the kitchen doorway. The solidity of her. The absolute calm authority of this isn't the road. When you are old, whenever and wherever that happens, you will remember Agnes in that doorway. The Bell-Inn's Thursday schedule for the record. York Express, southbound, arrives approximately 4:45 in the morning. 4 horses to be ready. Manchester Post arrives approximately 6:30. 2 horses, 12 minutes. Bath Road northbound arrives noon. Sometimes 3 changes, sometimes 4, depending on what they need. London private carriages travel in the afternoon, irregular. Local evening business from 7. Last coach comes through at 8:30 most evenings, sometimes later in summer when the light holds, then the night quiet, then before dawn the whole thing again, and again, and again. This is what the inn is, not any single dramatic event, not any single arrival or departure. It's the pattern. the endless, reliable, essential repetition of it. Tomorrow morning you'll wake before 4. The cold will hit you, same as always. You'll pull on your boots, the left one still damp, the rag slightly flattened from the day. You'll climb down the ladder. The roan gelding will turn to look at you with his amber eye. You'll scratch his nose. He'll snort. You'll go to the pump. The horses are warm below you. You've stopped noticing how good it is. This heat that rises from 12 living bodies through 12 inches of plank and straw. You've stopped marvelling at it the way you marvelled at it in the first weeks, when the realization that animals put out heat, and that heat rises, and that you could arrange yourself above that heat to stay warmer was a genuine revelation. Now it's just the way the loft is. Warm enough, always warm enough, from the horses, even in the coldest weeks. You're warm enough, you're fed enough, you're safe enough. The 3 enoughs of a hard life going adequately. Not the 3 enoughs of a comfortable life, not the 3 enoughs of a gentleman, but real enoughs, actual enoughs. Enoughs you've earned with your hands and your cold mornings and your 11 minutes 40. Your father worked land that wasn't his for 30 years and has 3 enough. You're working an inn that isn't yours and you're 17 and you have 3 enoughs too. That's its own kind of success. Or the beginning of one. Digby's done it. 30 years and the head ostler of a good inn on a major road. A man who counts change times and names horses and cuts through everything unnecessary to find the useful true thing. Agnes has done it. Her kitchen, her rules, her reputation that means the Bell's game pies sell out on Thursdays. Hartley has done it. His inn, his name on the signboard. Not spectacular. Not the merchants at the Royal Exchange, if you knew what that was, which you don't yet. Not the members of Parliament in their polished carriages going north. Not the lords with their crested doors. But real, and theirs. That could be you. That might actually be you. Not today, not next year, but someday. You close your eyes. Northampton settles into its deepest quiet. Not silence. Never silence. Not in a market town on a coaching road. But the sounds thin out. The last drinkers have gone home from whatever tavern kept them. The night watch is at his box. The only coach on the road is the night mail, 2 hours north now and moving. Somewhere across town the baker is already awake. Bread doesn't make itself, and breakfast starts early, and the baker's oven needs to be at temperature before most of the town is thinking about waking up. You've never met this baker, and you'll never meet him, and his bread comes to the Bell's kitchen by a route you don't know. But right now he's up and working in the dark, and you're both, in your way, keeping the town fed. The woman who was robbed on the Bath Road, Mrs. Ashford, is in room 6. She's probably asleep. The maid is on the truckle bed. The small case that held the grandmother's pearls is not there. Is somewhere the dark-coated man has sold it or hidden it. Maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't. The linen merchant in room 9 is still waiting for his connection. Tomorrow he'll wait again. Mary is asleep. Agnes is asleep, finally. Ned is asleep on his bench in the back hall, which Hartley tolerates because Ned is 12 and the walk home is longer than it looks. Will's breathing has gone deep and even. His mouth is probably open, but you can't see it. The stable boys are still their pile of limbs and warmth. Digby is in his room above the brewhouse, which is his particular arrangement, has been for 15 years. The slight warmth of the brewhouse coming through the floor even on a cold night. You imagine he's asleep the way Digby does everything, completely, efficiently, without waste. And you, your eyes close. Not fighting it now, not pulling back against it, just letting it come, the way sleep comes when you've genuinely used yourself up in the day's work. The sounds of the inn and the town around it go soft. The horses breathe. Centuries will pass. The Bell Inn won't be there, or it will, transformed, changed, rebuilt so many times that only the name connects it to what you know. The yard will be paved differently. The stable block will serve some other purpose. The hayloft where you sleep will be something else entirely. The coaches will stop. The roads they run on will be superseded by other roads built for machines that don't need horses, and those machines will be superseded by other machines, and everything will change in ways so complete they make the change from horse to coach look timid. The town will grow. The 5,000 people of Northampton in 1749 will become 50,000 and then more, sprawling out over the fields where horses exercise now, over the commons and the market gardens. But the road will still be there. The Great North Road will still be there, called different things at different times, marked in different ways, but still the same geographical fact that it was in 1749, the line that connects the north of England to the south, the line along which things and people and news have moved for as long as there's been an England. And people will still need to eat and sleep and rest on that road. They'll do it differently. They won't smell the same or sound the same or look the same, but someone will still get up before dawn to make sure the next leg of someone else's journey is possible. That doesn't change. The human fact of it doesn't change. The need to move and to be cared for while moving. The need for warmth and food and a place to stop. The need for the person who runs to get the watch, who holds the lantern up, who checks the shoe in the cold first thing in the morning. You're part of a chain that goes back before coaching inns and forward beyond them. The chain of people who keep other people moving. That's what you are, right now, tonight, in this loft above 12 horses in Northampton in the March of 1749. That's exactly what you are. The straw is underneath you, the blanket is over you, the horses are below you. The cold is outside the blanket and the warmth is inside it. Your hands have stopped shaking. They're just hands now, smelling of harness oil and horse and the soap from the kitchen basin, resting open on the mattress. Tomorrow comes. Not yet, but it comes. Before 4, the bells will start, and your body will know them before your mind does, and you'll sit up in the dark with the particular efficiency of someone who has done this enough times to have automated it. But that's tomorrow. Right now there is just the loft, the breathing of the horses, the creak of the building, the distant, persistent sound of the town settling into its deepest sleep. Your eyes are closed. Your breathing slows, slows, slows. Let the day go. The game pie is eaten, the harness is oiled, the greys are ready for the morning, the dark-coated man's horse is in the south stall. You told the watch, you held the lantern up, you did what needed doing. It's enough. It's enough. Let the rest of it go. Let the cold yard go, and the coach arrivals, and the tired travellers with their purses and their losses, and their long road still ahead. Let the sound of hooves on cobblestone go. Let Agnes's voice go, and Digby's count and Hartley's pale eyes that see everything. Let even the horses go. They're fine. They're below you, warm and fed and sleeping. They don't need you now. Just this. The weight of your body on the straw. The blanket's wool. The warmth that rises from the stable below. The cold at your nose that means you're still here, still present, still in the world, but only barely. The last thing you hear is the 2 o'clock bell. All Saints, half a mile away, 2 strokes, 2 hours until the yard starts again. But you won't be counting any more tonight. You'll be somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere warm, somewhere that isn't the bell in hayloft, and also is nothing but the bell in hayloft, because that's where you are and where you'll wake up and where, for now, you belong. Sleep. Just sleep. The road can manage itself for a few hours. It always has. Good night.